the Cowboys, one of the worst teams this year, are going to be looking for all sorts of cures in 2021. Couple of things said today by Stephen Jones, the Cowboys COO. And let me tell you, at a time when there isn't a whole lot of information flowing because of the COVID-19 protocols, and there isn't open locker room, and there isn't Jerry Jones holding court after the game, the Cowboys still do a good job of filling the void. One day it's Steven, the next day it's Jerry. Then it's Steven, then it's Jerry. Today it's Steven, as it usually is on Mondays. He was asked about the possibility of the Cowboys having one of the top picks in the 2021 draft, and they're on track for that. And he was asked if they would consider taking a quarterback. Said Stephen Jones, Dak's our quarterback. We're so fired up about him and him leading us into the future. Now, look, I hope he's lying. Not that they don't want Dak, but I hope that the truth is, for the sake of the Cowboys organization and all the fans out there, I hope the truth is they will evaluate all options, because that's what every team must do. Charean, you can't take off the table the possibility of drafting Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields or some other quarterback by the time we get to April and we know who the best candidates are. You can't just say we're not going to do that. You need to have everyone guessing. You need to have Dak guessing. You need to have the players who may be picked guessing. Because there's a chance you're going to be able to trade that pick to somebody who wants a quarterback. You don't want to be on record saying we don't want that quarterback, because sometimes your best trade leverage is maybe we'll just take him ourselves. So, look, I understand they're trying to create a certain image and paint a certain picture about the Cowboys organization at a time when there aren't many positive things to be said or done. But I hope like hell that for their sake, they will explore all options when the time comes if they end up with one of the top picks. And as of right now, it looks like they will.
Yeah, they're a top 5 pick right now, Mike. And if you're in that position, I think you have to look at those quarterbacks. You have to. There's just no ifs, ands, and buts about it. You have to take a look at them, especially since your franchise quarterback is playing under the franchise tag and he is unsigned for next year. I think that puts you firmly in a position to have to look at those quarterbacks and say, if we can't get this guy signed, can we afford Dak Prescott under the franchise tag next season? Or do we move on to somebody else who's going to cost way less money and roll our dice that Justin Fields or Trevor Lawrence is better than Dak Prescott coming off an injury when we don't know how he's going to be, because he will not have worked out at that point. Stephen Jones said Dak's ahead of his recovery schedule, about 4 months it was supposed to take. So we'll see where he is, but they're not going to know a whole lot about his condition before they have to make a decision on the franchise tag. So I think that puts them in a very difficult position, and they need to keep all options on the table, as you said, Mike.
Here's the reality as it relates to Dak Prescott. Unless there is some broader renegotiation of the CBA that changes the way that the franchise tag is calculated for a player who has a salary that guarantees him at a minimum a 20% raise over what his cap number was the prior year, and that's unlikely, even with the salary cap likely plummeting to $175 million. The Cowboys are looking at $37 million plus next year to tag Prescott again. With the cap dropping to $175, I guarantee you, $37 million for 1 year with Dak is more than what they would pay the number 1 overall pick for 4 years combined. That has to be part of the consideration if you're the Cowboys, if you end up with one of those top picks, and if you believe that one of those quarterbacks can be as good, just almost as good as Dak. Makes it dollar for dollar a much better deal to go with the younger player. And you finally solve this problem that you, the Cowboys, created by not getting Dak signed sooner. Another problem the Cowboys created, in the eyes of many of their fans, hiring Mike McCarthy to be the head coach, said Stephen Jones when asked whether McCarthy will be the coach in 2021. Absolutely unequivocal. And look, he can say whatever he wants in November of a failing season. If they would fire Mike McCarthy after the season ends, and I'm not saying they will, I'm not saying they should, but the last thing anyone is going to do is pull up this quote from November 9, 2020 and say, aha, you said absolutely unequivocal Mike McCarthy will be back and you fired him. So what are you going to do? Nobody cares at that point. So it's just air. It's just noise. And I'm not complaining, Charean. It gives us stuff to talk about. But to me, this assessment is meaningless. to Mike McCarthy's future, because if they stink for the rest of the year, it has to be on the table that he may be gone.
Yeah, two things, Mike. He also said, Jerry Jones said, not Stephen Jones, but Jerry Jones said, back before he fired Wade Phillips, when Wade Phillips was under fire, Jerry Jones pointed out, I've never fired a head coach in the middle of a season. It's not going to happen now. And I'm paraphrasing, but that was basically it. And he said it multiple times. So what happens? They go lay an egg against Green Bay, and what does he do the next day? He fires Wade Phillips. So anything's on the table, as we know, absolutely, Mike. And we probably will pull the quote back out and say they did give him a vote of confidence, but they decided, after the season, change their minds. People do change their minds. But I do think Mike McCarthy is back. I thought I saw progress with the team yesterday. The defense played much better than they have played. So maybe Mike Nolan is making progress on that defense, and they've made some changes, and they put some young guys in there, and they really played well. So we'll see what happens the rest of the season. I think it's really important, and Stephen Jones also talked about this today, really important for them to establish Mike McCarthy's culture, what he wants, what he's asking, and they can do that the rest of the year. They're not going to the playoffs. They're not going to win the NFC East, even though they're still in the race. Let's be realistic about this. They've started 4 quarterbacks, but they can establish some things the rest of the season and build toward 2021.
Best example of why we should put no stock in what Stephen Jones said about Mike McCarthy. It was during the 2010 season. Wade Phillips was in jeopardy, and Jerry Jones was constantly being harassed, Charean, with the question of whether or not he would fire Wade Phillips during the season. He had never fired a coach during the season. I'm never going to do that. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. And then they get blown out by the Packers, and they're embarrassed in the process, and he fires Wade Phillips. And who cares if he previously said that the last thing he would do is fire Wade Phillips during the season? But that gives coaches, GMs, executives, owners no real credibility. It creates headlines. It gives us things to talk about. But at the end of the day, it's worthless because they can change their minds whenever, however, and wherever they want.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.